who was working with Cohesive Urban Management and in particular did a wonderful job managing the Newtown precinct. But she left a long time ago. What would it have been, 12 or 13 years ago?
Oh, and it's actually more than that. It's clocking on 16 actually. So it is exactly. So yes. I will share my screen if that's all right. Great. And yeah, I'll just to kind of.
And meanwhile, Nadia is the CEO of the London Bridge BID, Business Improvement District, which they're called in England. It's lovely. It's coming up. We just need the presentation version and then we're in business. And I'll hand over to you.
Great, thanks. Also to say, please, anyone jump in whenever is needed. And Anne, if I can ask you to just, because I can't see with the presentation mode if anyone's asking any questions. So if I drone on, please do interrupt and ask as many questions as I can possibly answer.
So it might be easier with questions at the end. Or discussion at the end, but meanwhile keep going and we'll let you know if there are hands. Thank you.
Lovely, thanks. So I'm Nadia Broccardo. I was born and raised in Rosebank Parktown and moved to the UK about 16 years ago. Anne gave me 3 months to go clear my head, and unfortunately I never returned to Johannesburg. So I've actually been working at Team London Bridge, the London Bridge Business Improvement District, for all that time. And we've just gone from strength to strength, really. BIDs were fairly new when I arrived. BIDs, SIDs, they are interchangeable. They're called Business Improvement Districts, completely interchangeable there with City Improvement Districts. Please excuse me, I was trying to put this presentation together. I just couldn't remember some of the detail of the legislation in South Africa. Just excuse me if I'm teaching any of you to suck eggs through this. But our legislation here is on the not on the property owner, it's on the tenant of the organisation. There's a wonderful term here called a hereditament, which is a rate-paying organisation. So that is how we generate the income for the Business Improvement District. Apart from being CEO here at Team London Bridge, I'm co-chair of the BID Foundation, which is part of the Institute of Place, which is part of the Manchester Metropolitan University, and that is trying to professionalise the place body as an industry, and the BID Foundation is an arm of that. And then I also chair Pottersfield Park Management Trust, which is 2 parks within the BID area, which are not-for-profit organisations, and which is something I do kind of voluntarily on the side. Just to put a bit of context into this, I wanted to most of you, this is no different in South Africa, and the frame, I suppose, the framework in which it operates is slightly different, but as we know, particularly the aspects of BIDs, but it's really to look at how we can encourage and ensure businesses are healthy and thriving within the community. So we've got everything here that you are looking at throughout the South African landscape. The cost of living crisis has really affected our places, and the environmental and ESG, which is the one thread you'll see throughout all of this aspect within BID management, and is really coming to the surface, which is the environment, social and governance aspect. Nationally, labour market crisis here, that is probably a considerable difference in terms of here. Labour market since Brexit and the Ukraine has absolutely faltered. We really are struggling. It's probably the biggest complaint from businesses at the moment, which is just accessing a labour market. With Brexit, we lost a massive amount of European nationals coming in and able to access, particularly in the hospitality and retail sectors. Supply chain, Ukraine has obviously affected that, and COVID, which has just really shown the vulnerability nationally of the United Kingdom. Regional, as you will know, the hybrid working, that's been a real concern, and for the bid, trying to prioritise how we get that back. Businesses, as they are in South Africa, desperate to getting people coming back. I am starting to hear businesses really aligning people's bonuses and all of that aspect to them coming back into the office. The average, though, is still 2 to 3 days a week on this side. And here, the trading online versus on-site, massive implications on that. Not so much here in Team London Bridge area in central London. Our retail area is very small, but because it surrounds the fourth biggest station in the country, but anywhere with on a regional aspect, getting people in, enjoying their spaces, enjoying their city centres, because most of the UK is now trading online instead of offline, which then means that the experience is obviously key in our cities and places. Local, it's all about place purpose, and that's where the bids come in. This is where our biggest growth has, been seen with bids in the area. It's who do you go to really look at the place purpose for businesses and for the trading environment. Just to kind of give that framework, 322 bids now across the UK. The legislation came in 2005, and Kingston in London, in West London, was the first one. We now have 1 million people employed in the bid area just in London, so most of London commercial area is in some form of bid or another. There's 69 bids within London itself. There's 17,000, there's that word again, hereditaments across London, so rate-paying organisations that pay into bids. We've got 46 million total annual levy income, which is coming into London. I don't think enough is said about that, because that is really additional money that would not have come in, that is coming pretty much from the private sector, even though the because it's on the ratepayers, our statutory organisations, so our government organisations also pay into the bid levy funds. And then nationally, that's starting to look like quite an interesting sum of 132 million per annum being generated back through the bids and the services there. Just to remind everyone, and this is something I couldn't remember in terms of the South African legislation, was the 5-year terms. Every 5 years we have to go back through a balloting process, which I've spent the last 16 years considering whether it's a positive or a negative, but what it really does is align minds and align priorities, having to go back to your business community, firmly stating your business plan, and getting a successful yes ballot. So from them, which is quite a complicated process. There we go. Just to give you a bit of an overview, it's not one size fits all here in the UK, and I think that's very positive. But it's the size of bids can range absolutely from about £20,000 a year to well over 2.5 million, and that's just from the bid levy. So that's just from what the businesses are actually paying. There goes that ballots aspect. So you really do see the success of bids over those 5-year periods. The ballot success is at 90%. We did have some failures. We have had some failures, particularly during COVID. Then that turnout average. This is something that's highly contested. We don't have a turnout minimum in the UK. So if you go to that ballot, there's no requirement for you to have X amount of your businesses actually responding. It's recommended that you have at least 35% turnout. and turnout average is actually at 40. We received 65 in our last ballot, which is pretty good, but actually there's a very complex system here, and understanding who the property owners are and then ultimately the tenants for those ballot papers is quite complicated. There are many types of bids here. We had many years of just straight bids with kind of commercial bids looking at hospitality and experience, and now that's really changed, and there's been quite an influx of since COVID looking at those opportunities, and we've got accommodation bids which stretches across multiple areas. We've got tourism bids, we've got city centre bids, but it's causing massive confusion. And just to kind of give a very quick outline in terms of the relationships with devolved governments, we've got mayoral systems here in the larger cities, and we've also got local authorities. The local authorities, there's 370 odd local authorities across England, 315 across England. That's not including Scotland and Northern Ireland. And most of them understand the bid regulations differently, which causes a lot of concern. But it's just how they interpret the bid regulations. Ultimately, it goes into DLUC, which is the Department of Levelling Up, Housing and Communities. This current government has been in power for 30 years, which is a long time in the United Kingdom. It really is focusing less and less on communities, and that aspect of levelling up, which is taking priority outside of the major capitals, the capital, but the major cities, and the focus on communities is diminishing considerably. So I just wanted to spend a tiny bit of time kind of showing you what the central government is doing, and this is really tinkering, between tinkering along the edges. They're really just looking at guidance on that, and what we, through the Bid Foundation and through our kind of trade bodies as such, are really trying to get them to look at understanding bid operations and really trying to get to that. The ballot process is really difficult. I know that in South Africa you have limitations on your postal system. However, the regs here was written in a time when the postal system was stable. That balloting process has to be literally a hard copy ballot piece of paper that goes to the business. Our postal system is now deteriorating quite quickly, and that system is failing, and we need to relook at those regulations. So it's those aspects, and that is starting to cause major concern and potentially starting to affect that the ability for bids to renew. The emerging bid models, the local authorities, like I said, able to bill is really a problem. Like I say, the vast majority of local authorities bill the bids levy themselves. So our local authority here takes bills for us and then hands the money through to us, ring fences that, and hands. We've got an outstanding relationship with our local authority, but not all are the same. So once the businesses through postal don't get their bills, don't get money through the door, how do you then chase that? And then transparency and accountability. I mean, these are not new aspects, I'm sure, to all of you in South Africa, but just to kind of demonstrate that these are the aspects that we would like to see more support from central government in terms of the legislation, but also just highlighting the challenges that we do face here. This is something that I'm working quite closely on with the Bid Foundation, like I said, which is the institute, is having industry standards across the that this is for England and Northern Ireland, but really looking at 11 principles, and I won't obviously read through any of these, but some standards that every bid we believe can go through, that really does show the accountability of the bids, which would be making your board members available for making them available for contact, minutes of meetings, all the aspects that do make a good bid, that can give trust to the businesses, and obviously to central and local government on that side. But this is quite a challenge. You can imagine, with 360 odd businesses, with 360 odd local authorities who are billing on a different aspects, to actually get just 11 principles has been quite challenging. But we are kind of getting there on these bid industry standards. Then just to kind of always like to put this aspect of clarity of purpose. One of the wonderful aspects of bids and place management is really being able to look at your places individually, and I think that's what's caused the absolute success of bids, probably across the world. But it's really being clear on what you want to achieve, and transparent in how you're managing the levy payers investment portfolio. We cannot lose sight of that this is funding that's coming in addition, and it's their investment portfolio that has to get invested back into our areas. So some of the principles we like to talk about is representative, integrity, evidence-based, visible, responsive, innovative, and I like that well-measured bravery, because we do really have to try and take some opportunities and be brave, and do those things that some other organisations just wouldn't have the A capacity, but B the ability and support to take a few of those risks. Just to give a bit of context, bringing it right down into Team London Bridge, the London Bridge area, it is vast majorities office occupiers here. 78% of our hereditaments, our rateable value properties, are office organisations. We've got PwC, we've got Ernst & Young, we've got legal firms. There's no specific sector. We're not a financial industry. We're not a legal area. It's office occupiers. We've got a small amount of retail and leisure, mostly surrounding the fourth biggest train station, which is London Bridge. In the area, that's that beautiful picture of the newly developed London Bridge here. And one of the things that makes London and every area so special is the cultural offer, and that's something that we really do spend a considerable amount of time and energy and resource, is showing the authenticity of the area within London Bridge. So our vision: to make London Bridge one of the most sustainable, culturally innovative and compelling places for business and tourism in the world. So being quite ambitious, that aspect of acting global and delivering local. So we want a great place to work and visit, an environmentally focused business district. This is something that is absolutely key to us. That ESG principles and the environmental focus is really something through all the consultation. I mean, we couldn't do more consultation if we tried. We really do go out to our businesses and to the wider community and ask what it is that we can help with, how we can influence the area, and that environmental focus is absolutely key, and that allows for a thriving community. These are our 6 commitments, and you go through all the bid websites across the country, and people really do have different ways of framing this, but the very much front stage of London for the culture, and then bringing in the carbon zero and the aspects of all aspects of that ESG. That providing resilience for future and social economic shock. We went through our last ballot right in the middle of COVID. And one of the things that our business community really asked for is, how can you help us on a local level to ensure that the effects of something such as a pandemic can ensure that our businesses can bounce back as quickly as possible after something like that. So that's something that we very much work on. The increasing ambition, like I say, 15 years here, and we like to say, we're moving on from hanging baskets to place shaping. We still do a vast majority, we still do all the hanging baskets in the area, and it is something that our business community really still wants us to do. But we really are now pushing the aspects of that and looking at sustainable drainage, all the place aspects, all the aspect of what makes place. Now, obviously, that's a much longer, and it requires trust, commitment. That 5-year bid term is quite problematic in terms of long-term investment into the area, but it is something that, with the right partners, working closely with our local authorities and areas, we can really look at increasing our ambition and even looking at making this area carbon neutral by 2030 on those aspects. To allow us to be that ambitious, we have a number of strategies. I'm kind of known as the strategy queen in the UK, because I really just see that we need these roadmaps to help us to work with partners, to consult, to make sure everyone's on that. We put the London Bridge vision, and that then feeds in. We signed that off in 2017, and that looks at every single aspect of the area, and it then feeds into the regional Southwark, our local authorities. Basically, we wrote their planning aspect for their Southwark plan, which for our area. We consulted, and then they incorporated that into their new Southwark plan. And we've got a firm cultural strategy, we've got a retail strategy, we've got a cycling strategy, and our newest one now is the decarbonisation of London Bridge, so net zero on that side, and that all ties into the ESG, which is our responsible vision, responsible business strategy for London Bridge. This is just really a snapshot of all the projects that we deliver. We fund the environment side. We actually pay the council, the local authority, to clean the streets more regularly. It's an uplift of about 100% on that side. We fund an additional two police officers, really that Bobby on the beat aspect, one being from the British Transport Police and one being from the Metropolitan Police. And a lot of bids do have wardens and security guards. We've got a large amount of estates, and that caused quite it just wasn't something that was required for this area. So having that authority of the police and that ability to be around the table is really quite valuable to us, and our businesses really value that, having that police influence there. Arts and culture, as I said, really trying to integrate it into the area. We've really seen this as our ability to be as inclusive as possible. When I came here, this area was seen as a very commercial, very closed off. You come here to do business, and times are changing. People really want to have inclusive, enjoyable spaces, and our cultural offer really does that. It's all free. It's it's events every week. It's bringing in people to enjoy themselves from across across the age group, across the cultural divides. Place shaping, which is something that I know that most bids do in South Africa, and obviously place promotion and that responsible business side. We've got an information kiosk here. When everybody was closing down during COVID, in the times that we could, we actually wanted people in. That was something our businesses. So we've got an information kiosk, and we've kept that going. Where can you come? Where can you have the best jacket potato and fish and chips in the area? Those kind of aspects. And then we've also got a community space here. One of the things that the board here was really keen to do was ensure that we had community interaction. So the businesses have funded a space here which allows for community groups to work and use, that we manage here on this side. Bikes for Business is a lovely initiative, and so much of our work is on sustainability, across the board. But this initiative, we subsidize businesses to go to use pedal power instead of vans that are clogging up the area. So through additional funding through different sources, we actually allow businesses to buy their own bikes if they do, or to actually use courier services all through pedal power. So it's something that BIDS are really championing across London and actually the UK, to try and change that, our modes of transport along the side, within our city centres. Just to finish off, I thought, let me try and escape from here and see if I can share something that's a little bit Nadia,
do you want me to do it, or are you?
Let's
are you
see
happy
if I
to try?
can.